Chrissy Dumont was the woman who Clifford Claremont had always wanted. Beautiful, lively, fun, and easygoing. Chrissy was smitten with him, too, until he got into an MMORPG, a massively multiplayer online role-playing game, where he could play superhero or villain and go on quests, collecting prizes and battling. Clifford was so enthralled with the game that he started neglecting Chrissy. He never wanted to spend time with her anymore. She tried calling him multiple times, only to have her phone calls unreturned. Gaining 35 pounds, Clifford's health suffered. Acne infested his face in swarms. His schedule was work, eat, sleep, play video games. Dishes piled up. Filth and grime grew in his cluttered-up sink until he forced himself to clean them. Dingy laundry had amassed. Musty odors and food stains abound. Chrissy was concerned. She drove to his apartment twice, finding no answer either time. Clifford was home on both occasions, ignoring the ring that irritated his ears like some pesky mosquito. Blasting headphone music choked out the buzzer noise. Chrissy gave up after the second time of being ignored, contemplating leaving Clifford. She bet that he would not have even noticed. Knocks interrupted her thinking. She went to the door to see who it could be. Standing there was Miles Drake, Clifford's best friend since kindergarten. Chrissy knew him entirely in passing, so his being here was strange. He seemed like a friendly enough person, so she opened up the door. Miles smiled. He was medium build with light brown skin and long brown hair, his posture informally hunched. "Hey, Chrissy, is Cliff here?" Miles asked, slightly stoned. "No, he's not. Why? Isn't he at his apartment?" Chrissy wondered. Maybe something bad had happened to him, and that's why he was not answering his door or phone. Chrissy thought the worst. "Don't think so. I was there an hour ago. He didn't answer the buzzer. I hope he's okay. Haven't seen him in a while." "I did that twice," Chrissy said. "I hope he isn't hurt." "Bummer. I guess I can see if he's there tomorrow. Well, bye." "Wait," Chrissy called. "Yeah? Did you want to come inside? Maybe we could hang out," Chrissy suggested. She was in bad need of good company. "Sure, I guess I could. What do you want to do?" Miles asked. "Don't know. What do you want to do?" Chrissy asked back as she walked inside. "Whatever you want, lady." Weeks after Miles and Chrissy hung out, Clifford experienced major technical difficulties. It happened between a Saturday and a Monday shift. He worked at a video game store 10 miles from home. His MMORPG was an escape from those snotty kids, nerds, and dweebs who infested his workplace. All their idiotic questions, lamenting how video games they could not win at sucked, and those god-awful aromas of fast food and body odor. He could drop his nice retailer facade and stop feigning concern about whatever customers babbled on about. Clifford considered his home his sanctuary and paradise. But even paradise had come to an end, even if at the worst possible time, 11 a.m. on his Sunday off, when he sat at his computer, controlling his virtual avatar in its virtual world. Clifford took intermittent bites of colorful cereal between raising pixelated chickens and trading items with other players using fictional currency. His avatar was a cape-wearing superhero with wavy hair and a chiseled face, clad in yellow and purple. This hero sported watermelon-sized biceps. Clifford's hero was trading with the villain adorned in a purple cloak. Out from under his hood came small ram's horns. While trading 10 healing potions for 10 golden apples, Clifford's computer screen went plink. Everything in the game shrank into a tiny white dot in the screen's center, which vanished seconds later. Clifford threw a fit. Screams upon yells upon hollers. Neighbors might have called the police had they been home. He looked angrily at the CPU, almost like it was somehow teasing him with having no power. Clifford pressed the power button, but nothing. He did it again, but still nothing. 3 tries, and the computer still would not respond. Storming through the apartment, Clifford swung his arms in some odd elliptical motion. He pouted and he whined, an overgrown child finally being told no. His arms swirled around so fast that he nearly achieved flight. Labored breathing was expelled in enraged bursts. Then he had to sit down. He chose the nearest furniture, his couch. His stomach rose and fell repetitively until he caught his breath. Weight gain and inactivity had made him sluggish. He had not been very fit to begin with, but his MMORPG obsession made it even worse. Clifford went back into his room. He tried the power button once more, only to witness failure. At 8 years old, it was quite old for a modern computer. Clifford believed that he might have had enough money for a laptop, a good one, with the right deal, but not a great one. He was unsure if it could support his game or not. A store a few miles away from his work might have sold laptops. He could go there tonight when his shift ended. Looking at the power button, Clifford sighed. New computers were expensive. Clifford was unsure if he could afford it. But he was desperate about getting back into his game. With nothing better to do, Clifford decided to go catch up with Chrissy. Then he could visit Miles. Chrissy and Miles watched television and ate pizza. Her parents were at work. She had ordered the pizza. Chrissy preferred garlic and sausage, while Miles did not care because the munchies had no preference. So the couple went with an extra-large garlic sausage pie. They were certainly a couple. Absolutely positive, in fact. Over the last couple of weeks, the two had spent a lot of time together. They admitted that they loved each other, bonding over their mutual hatred of Clifford. Originally, they were hesitant about the relationship because it felt like betrayal. But the feeling was fleeting. Clifford was the one pushing them away by ignoring them. Served him right, they justified. Eating their pizza, the two watched some decades-old cartoon. The duck was chasing a squirrel around the front lawn of a 1940s home. Running up a tree, the squirrel shot nuts out of a Tommy gun at the duck. Chrissy and Miles laughed, the former commenting on how they never allowed guns in cartoons anymore. Their laughter terminated in staring, then a slow embrace that culminated in kissing. Chrissy enjoyed it, forgetting the last time she and Clifford had shown their affection. Miles enjoyed it as well, more so because of his mild high. Sounds came from behind the television. They pulled away from each other, opening their eyes. They were utterly shocked. "Wow, I can't believe it. Betrayed by my best friend and my girlfriend," Clifford said, fuming, standing there with his arms at his side. "Clifford, how did you get in here?" Chrissy exclaimed, worried and then a bit frightened. "The door was unlocked. Must have been genius over here. He's done that a lot, left the door wide open when I've come home from work. I took his key away after that." "Dude," Miles complained, throwing up his arms. "Shut up," Clifford snapped back, mumbling. Chrissy walked to him, putting on her biggest smile as she batted her eyelashes. Holding Clifford's face between her slender fingers, she tried to look him in the eyes. Clifford looked away, disgusted. "Please, you don't understand. I tried to call you, but you never responded. I had to move on," Chrissy pleaded lovingly. "You had to? You had to?" Clifford belted out rhetorically, as though singing the rock and roll hits of a madman, shoving Chrissy. Miles sprang up, certainly spry for being stoned. He rushed at his former best friend, who was still grimacing at Chrissy. She had been knocked onto the carpet, unharmed. Miles swung his fist into Clifford's cheek, sending him backwards, but still on his feet. Clifford grew chock full of ire, wanting to repay the favor. "Stop, both of you! I'm fine," Chrissy ordered, outstretched her arms between the two as she sat on the carpet, trying to regain balance. Blood came out of Clifford's mouth. He wiped it away without looking. Miles smiled and put his hands up like the boxer that he certainly was not. Clifford turned, stomped, and walked away powerfully, slamming the door. Chrissy hung her head, sad. "Ha! And never come back," Miles called, hoping Clifford had not heard him. "The hell is wrong with you?" Chrissy screeched. "Oh, okay. You're welcome for me saving your life," Miles responded sarcastically. "He only knocked me on the carpet, you idiot. I wasn't actually hurt. What's the big deal? He'll get over it. He always does." "What if he presses charges?" "Well, then I'll press them back." Miles's logic, like his reflexes, was quite keen for a stoner. "Oh, okay. Relax, babe. He had his chance. Now I've got mine." "Don't call me babe, and get out," Chrissy said. "What? Why? Get out!" Chrissy hissed as she yelled. She grabbed the pizza box, hurling it with superb aim. It almost hit him in the eye, but missed, instead clipping his shoulder. All right, I'll go," Miles surrendered, moving quickly towards the door. "You owe me $15 for your half of the pizza." "I bought the pizza. You spent your half on weed, you dumb pothead," Chrissy corrected him, bending down to retrieve the pizza box to reload. Miles was out the door before seeing an encore. He fled to his ratty old car as the marijuana was wearing off. Clifford was long gone, making Miles glad. He might have come back with a bat, or something worse. Chrissy smirked, watching as Miles's hunk of junk car went the fastest it had gone since his parents bought it new in 1998. Clifford's trip to the electronics department was a total bust. He carelessly referred to prices from when he bought one 7 years ago, when determining if he could purchase a new laptop. Clifford erroneously believed that he could still walk away with a decent one for $350. Workable laptops went for no less than $525 exactly, a terrific bargain, way beyond his price point. For the foreseeable future, Clifford would likely be going computerless. Other than surfing the web during his lunch hour at work, Clifford had no other way to go online. Being away from his MMORPG was eating away at him. Sweat damply coated his skin as his heart palpitated like he was having gambling withdrawals. He needed his game. Maybe he needed Chrissy more, or to punch Miles. As he sat at home, thoughts swam around his head as he eyed the desktop. Clifford pushes the power button. Still dead. This made him sour. Grabbing his hair, he sank his face into his palms and unfurled his frustrations into his heated hands. He had to head to work for another noon to 8 shift. Food court lunch would either be mediocre at best sushi or an oversized soft pretzel, and a soda with mustard packets aplenty. Rummaging through his cupboards would have been fruitless, as only some peanut butter and expired crackers dwelled within his shelves. Grocery shopping sometime soon was necessary, but he could ill afford it. Finances mandated TV dinners and ramen noodles above all else. Just then, a knock rapped at his door. He was tempted not to answer it, but the knocker was as persistent as they were loud. Those sounds irritated Clifford, so he got up, marching over to the door to end the pounding, not bothering to look through the peephole. It could have been a serial killer for all he knew. Clifford swung the door open with impeccable fury. Standing there was Miles, oddly enough, not high. Miles waved briefly, knowing that he had screwed up. Clifford's anger roiled like a fruit blending into a smoothie. His face was soured by deceit and sweetened by rage. Miles got the hint, but continued on with his apology. I don't know what to say, man," Miles began honestly. "First, I wanted to apologize for belting you. Chrissy was hurt, and I just reacted. You would have done the same thing, right? Miles posited, smiling. Clifford was not amused. His bared teeth were slightly crooked with a gap. Miles had displayed symptoms of foot-and-mouth disease. Clifford started to shut the door on his former friend. Miles blocked it, making Clifford wonder if he could press charges. Anything to make him pay for what he did. Maybe Chrissy, too. Just hear me out, Cliff. I won't take long. I need to talk to you, but I can't do it in this hallway. Can I come in? How the hell did you get up here? I didn't buzz you in. One of your neighbors let me in when she was going out. I told her I was coming up to see my friend, Miles explained. Pausing momentarily, he added, I wasn't lying. Clifford felt like erupting when Miles said that. It would have required a difficult determination. Miles certainly would not be the one to determine it. Fine, come in, Clifford acquiesced, standing aside as Miles strolled past. He was eager to profess. Clifford saw Miles walk aimlessly, so he corrected him on how to conduct himself in someone else's home. Sit at the table. Don't sit on the couch. That's my spot, Clifford ordered firmly, standing there until Miles pulled up a chair. With his back turned, Clifford said, I'm listening. I want to tell this to your face. It's important, Miles insisted. Start speaking, or you'll be right out of here. You're lucky I'm even hearing you. Miles flipped his body back around, sitting a moment before he began to profess. Listen, man, I'm sorry. I truly am. I can't speak for Chrissy, but I can for myself. We've been friends for a long time, wouldn't you say? Clifford nodded. It'd be a shame to throw that away. Chrissy and I broke up. She seemed really bummed about the whole thing, too. And, I mean, come on, man. It's not like it was entirely our fault. You could have been there more for her. You could have... Something slid across Miles's skin. Breathing became labored as he was drowned out by painful chokes. His bewildered eyes saw blood splashing down his orange shirt, soaking it dark and red. Clamping his hands around his neck, he hoped to stop the exsanguination at its source. Then Clifford stabbed him in the stomach. More pain came. You're right, Mr. Drake. I should have spent more time with her, not that it's any of your business. Maybe you'd understand if you weren't such a nosy pothead. You might even realize what a hypocrite you are, Clifford agreed, stabbing Miles twice more in the stomach. Miles noticed Clifford calling him Mr. Drake. Rarely had Clifford addressed anyone by that name, and that was to Miles's father. Agony writhed its ugly claws into the young man's body, bringing attention back to his grave wounds. Maybe I was selfish for the last month. I'll admit that. But I was a good boyfriend. I listened to her problems, took her places even when I didn't have much scratch. Time spent with her, wasted my days off making her feel better when she was on her period. You can't believe how much I sacrificed for her. Stop. I got to go to the hospital. Miles groaned, managing a few more measly words from his mouth. Clifford heard his plea and ignored it, stepping closer to him. But I'm no selfish stoner. In and out of rehab, driving your parents crazy with your addiction. Your baby sister almost drowned when she was 2 because she got into the pool and you were too stoned to care. Isn't that right, Mr. Drake? He stared Miles down. Clifford was inches from his former friend's face. Miles was losing consciousness, struggling to keep blood from leaking out of the considerable gash in his neck, while his stomach also burned. Isn't that right, Mr. Drake? Clifford thundered, jamming the knife into Miles, truncating every word with butchery. In each shoulder, in the gut, in the back. Le coup de grace went through Miles's jaw, ripping open the flesh and cleaving his tongue in twain. Miles spit up blood, gagging on the blade. His head stopped moving. His eyes closed. Clifford removed the weapon from Miles's mouth, red ribbons jutting outward. Miles's head bobbed down, generously bloodied and unmoving. He was dead. Clifford smiled, tossing the blood-stained knife onto Miles's corpse. Whipping out his flip phone, Clifford dialed work. Marcus, his pain-in-the-ass coworker, answered, annoyed to hear that Clifford was under the weather. Now Marcus might have to double his 4-hour shift and miss class if their manager could not get someone to fill in. Clifford thanked him, hung up, slipped his phone into his pocket, and chuckled. He leaned over Miles's body, nestling his hand into his former friend's right pocket. Pay dirt, Clifford's mind echoed as he boosted a thick stack of 20s from Miles's wallet. His credit cards, driver's license, and health insurance cards would remain. Clifford knew that police could trace credit cards. Burying his dead ex-friend would be hard, but removing him from the apartment would be a nightmare. No one noticing something large and human-shaped being taken downstairs and crammed into someone's trunk would require lottery-like odds. But there was a payoff. A sweet, sweet payoff. Ruffling through the cash, Clifford added until he discovered that he was holding $300. His eyes glowed with delight. He took out his own wallet, filling it with the pilfered bills, swelling its girth. The wallet was too bloated to close fully, so Clifford did his best, shoving it back into his pocket. Clifford knew his newfound windfall would allow him to afford a laptop, or maybe a new desktop. That would be good, he imagined. He thought about other things, like if he should kill his ex. Chrissy called Clifford just as he was washing blood from the knife. His phone ring played comforting music. Clifford swooped it out of his pocket. Chrissy's home phone number was displayed on a small square. He frowned, putting the phone back, seriously preoccupied. Clifford had no time to listen to voicemails. There would undoubtedly be one. He did not want to see her. Clifford fancied killing her, the idea rearing its alluring head. Currently, disposing of the cadaver in his apartment took priority. Part of the plan meant losing possessions, namely his bedsheets. Covering the body entirely was absolutely necessary. Not a limb or finger out of place would do. All of Clifford's stored junk was in his large closet. Stuck under some boots or sitting on one of the unopened boxes were possibilities for the sleeping bag's location. Following an hour of lifting heavy boxes and snooping, Clifford came up empty-handed. His chest heaved, his back ached, both resulting from laborious work performed by someone who was in terrible shape. He leaned back across his bed, resting to catch his breath. Gazing at the ceiling lights triggered the memory of him throwing away the sleeping bag when he moved out of his parents' house. Twiddling his thumbs and trying to find another solution, Clifford could find none. Nothing he owned except for his blankets could conceal a human body, and he only had 2. Then he thought of the pilfered money. Maybe it would be wise to invest some of it in a few new blankets. They were sold at the same store that sold the computers, after all. Clearly, he would be unable to keep a body here. Odor alone was bound to seep into the vents, prompting neighbors to report a foul smell. Plus, Clifford wanted his brand-new computer. He had been wanting for it all week. Blankets, too. Maybe 3. Getting rid of this stiff, formerly known as Miles, was paramount. Clifford looked at his blankets. One was white, the other gray. Thinking of all that blood that would paint his sheets red, Clifford knew that the white one was a horrible choice. Gray was darker and much better. Clifford swaddled both blankets around his arm, holding them as though they were a giant roll of paper towels. He trudged over to where his former friend lay. Doing his best, Clifford was confident that he had gotten the white blanket to cover Miles. Next came the gray blanket. Clifford wrapped him in a second layer. Blood had smeared onto Clifford's forearms and elbows, sickly reminiscent of finger painting in kindergarten. Confident that Miles was wrapped up nicely, Clifford washed the blood off his arms in the kitchen sink. Burgundy streams flowed down the drain, dark red thinning with soothing water and then dissipating altogether. Clifford patted himself dry with paper towels. He discarded the paper towels into the waste bin under his sink. He caught the time above the stove. 2 o'clock neared. Clifford could not believe how much time had passed, the normal schedule for a murderer being well beyond his experience. This was not ideal. Ditching the body during broad daylight was pure madness, not to mention he had not even decided on a burial place, or if he should bury it. One scenario of chucking him into the river, or another of setting it aflame, now crossed his mind. Pondering it, Clifford could not settle yet on a specific plan. If he had something better than a cheap flip phone, then he could have simply searched the internet for how long it took for a corpse to start smelling bad. But he did not have the chance to buy something better yet. That would come after the dirty deed was done. Weighing his options, Clifford decided that he would purchase his new laptop and blankets before dark. That way he would be able to sleep warmly that night. But not with that foul odor. He would have to steal away from the smell, or at least spray some aerosol. He hated that aerosol, the only brand that he could afford. It smelled like Chrissy. Clifford returned around 4. He placed a box in front of the derelict desktop that he had not yet gotten rid of. Inside was his all-new laptop, fitting itself into his budget due to his unexpected cash flow and a surprise sale. All bedding, including blankets, were 30% off, so he snagged 3 blankets and afterwards headed to the food court to grab a large soft pretzel and a jumbo soda. Paper napkins were shown no mercy. Mustard packets given no stay of execution. On his way home, Clifford considered potential burial spots for Miles. Images played in his head as he drove, rationalizing some choices while dismissing others. Within a mile of home, Clifford had recalled a spot from his childhood. Memories played back smoothly, like a vinyl record's clear, crisp music. "It's a place no one will look," played as silky music. Clifford unzipped the plastic boxes housing his blankets and tossed them lazily on the bed. Since Clifford rarely made his bed, the heap of fresh, new blankets resembled how his bed normally looked anyway. He planned to bring the body to his car between 10 and midnight. Based on the apartment complex's comings and goings, those 2 hours seemed like the ideal time frame. Most neighbors in the apartment complex were elderly, leading Clifford to assume their bedtime was the same time as most others' dinner time. He rarely saw younger tenants, even at night. Once his former friend was snugly shoved into the trunk, Clifford would drive to the burial site. Rethinking his plan caused panic. Clifford realized that he did not own a shovel. They sold them at the same big-box store where he made purchases with filched funds. Driving back to get one was possible, something that would have taken an hour tops. Clifford then remembered that his landlord owned multiple shovels. Since this landlord, the laziest, hard-working man that he had ever met, left them laying around whenever the property owners told him to perform odd jobs, Clifford could easily borrow one. If he could avoid being caught carrying a corpse, then boosting a shovel should be child's play. If the spade was still cloaked in dirt after burying Miles, Clifford could simply place it near some flowers, and his landlord would be none the wiser. Leaning his head back and cupping the nape of his neck with interlocking fingers, he fell back into his new blankets. He assured himself that his planning was complete. But there was still plenty of time before the deed had to be done. He could set up his new laptop, maybe even pick up his MMORPG where he left off, or watch TV, or sit and think, or... Clifford took out his phone, entirely blanking on Chrissy's call. A little envelope appeared on his screen. Fast-moving fingers scrolled swiftly through the messages folder. There was no text. Clifford found his voicemail. He pushed send, and a robotic man's voice asked him to enter his password, followed by the pound key. He entered the password anxiously, but it was denied. Entering it again, he paced himself, and then pressed the pound key. A different automated voice, female, reminded Clifford that he had 3 new messages and 6 saved. She proclaimed to tell him that he had 1 minute, 3 seconds remaining of memory before his voicemail box was full, prompting Clifford to press 1 for new messages. He did so. Hearing Miles's voice enraged Clifford, so he pushed 5 to erase it. Message 2 was Miles again, pleading for forgiveness, sent an hour before his untimely demise. That message likewise met its doom under the power of the almighty 5. Chrissy's message was the last new one. When Chrissy was greeted with his voicemail, she was briefly upset, assuming she was being blown off. She knew that he had every right to be mad, thus leaving him a message. Clifford played it, hoping to hear something comforting. Hey, Clifford. This is Christy. I just don't know. First of all, I want to apologize for everything. I'll admit I cheated on you, and it was a rotten thing to do. I could make excuses and finger point, but I'm not going to do that. It was the heat of the moment, and I swear we never kissed before that. It just happened. But that's no excuse. I hurt you. It's inexcusable. I've been thinking. We've been growing apart for far too long. You ignored me a lot. I felt alienated and hurt. I cried. I'm not trying to justify cheating, but you drove me away. If your stupid video game was more important than taking my calls, then you should just let it keep you company. Go make yourself happy. Obviously, I don't or can't. Oh, and don't forget, Miles is hurting too. He shouldn't have punched you, but he's been your best friend since kindergarten. If you couldn't make time for me, at least patch things up with him. He deserves that. And so do you. You know, I loved you so much. Of all the boyfriends I've ever had, I thought you were the gentlest, kindest, sweetest, and funniest of them all. That's why it was so hard for me when you started to ignore me right out of the blue. It was like losing a soulmate, a friend, and a lover all at the same time. I had been actually hoping you were going to ask me to marry you someday soon, even if I was still in college and you were still working at the mall full-time. It could have worked. I would have supported you no matter what, but that can't be, can it? I hope you will find it in your heart to not keep alienating others. You're a great man, but not when you're like this. So yes, we're through. Please don't come by or try to call. It's not easy, I know, but I wish you well. I know someday you'll make some other woman very happy. I just wish it could have been me. Chrissy spoke in her lengthy message, intended to say so much more, but unable due to her crying. Clifford was shocked. Tears fled his eyes. None had fallen when he stabbed his ex-friend repetitively, but here he was bawling over a phone call. Some not-so-positive opinions crossed his mind, choking off the tears. Anger flooded inside him. He caught the electronic voice just in time so that he would not have to hear Chrissy's voice again. He saw the opportunity to delete her message, pushed 5 thrice, and erased Chrissy's last words to him from existence. "Rotten hell, you bitch. You might be next." Subsequent to the tumultuous phone message, Clifford stared at his bedroom ceiling. He was upset, but no longer bursting with rage. Calming down had tuckered him out, like downing 4 sleeping pills. Beginning to doze, he watched the bedroom lights, 3 little orbs spoon-feeding him drowsiness. Sleep claimed him shortly thereafter. He awoke from dreamless slumber. Seamless to him, 3 real-time hours had passed. According to his flip phone, the time was 8:32. Hot, instinctual panic drove Clifford to rush to the kitchen table, where he saw the departed Miles Drake, still sitting in his chair, still wrapped in white, wrapped in gray. There were bloodstains on the gray blanket's outer edges, but nothing too notable from a distance. Clifford's energy was returning to him as he walked into the kitchen. There was a box of rigatoni in one cupboard, some unopened garlic and sausage sauce in another. Upon retrieving both, Clifford read that the pasta was still good for another 3 months, but the sauce was past its prime by 2. This was not his first expired foods rodeo. A staple of poverty was weighing the risks of best buy dates. He filled a large pot with 2/3 of water, placing it down on the stove, bringing the burner to maximum. The pot cover was placed on top, trapping the escaping heat. Clifford opened the sauce, sniffed it, and determined its edibility. This bitch passed, so onto the pasta it would go. He closed the lid tightly. After 5 minutes, bubbles began to boil up. He passed the time by reading the pasta box. Carbs alone made him wonder if he had hit his weight gain ceiling, or if he could still pack the pounds. Another 5 minutes passed. Steam spurted out as the top moved off the pot's edges. He removed it, ripped open the pasta box, and poured the pasta into the boiling water. Singeing splashes crashed, almost catching Clifford's skin but falling short by an inch. He would have to wait 10 minutes more until it cooked. Under the unused coffee maker was a cabinet full of pots and pans. A large strainer was removed and placed in the sink. He always liked to have it ready. Bored, Clifford looked around his apartment. When cooking, he was always watchful of the stove, especially an electric one. They were more powerful and could easily cause burns, or so his mother claimed. He caught sight of Miles. He was still wrapped in the bedsheets that, for all intents and purposes, were now his. That was okay, because he had new ones. They already felt remarkably comfortable. Clifford looked at Miles's top half, the only half visible from where he stood. Miles resembled a woolly gray soft-serve cone, thin swirls of blood accentuating the many fluffy curves like strawberry syrup. Clifford felt very odd, swearing he saw Miles's corpse turn away from him, but he dismissed it as a trick of the eyes. The oven clock indicated that 12 minutes had passed, so on go the oven mitts. He carried the pot to the sink, dumping the pasta into the strainer. Steam rose up from the strainer in a spacious plume. He had always been afraid that the fire alarm would go off, an irrational fear from childhood when he used to mistake steam for smoke. But the steam dispelled, rendering no ear-splitting screech. Clifford shook the strainer, drained the pasta, and transferred it into a bowl painted with flowers. The bottle of pasta sauce was emptied onto the rigatoni. Looking like a bloody mudslide sloshing down a ravine, the sauce spread across the pasta. Clifford mixed it by hand. He snagged up a 2-liter cola from the refrigerator and a cylinder of powdery Parmesan cheese. Inexpensive, but surprisingly decent. He sprinkled massive mounds of cheese onto the pasta. Putting the cheese back in the refrigerator, Clifford brought his soda and the entire pasta bowl to his kitchen table. He went back to get a fork and a glass, placing them on the table as well. He would likely not be eating all the pasta that night, but he would eat until he was full. He'd need the energy when he was out digging. He ate, poured soda into his glass, taking occasional sips between forkfuls of rigatoni. Miles was still sitting in the other chair. From his angle, Clifford's anxiety made him get the idea that his ex-friend was facing towards him across the kitchen table. His former friend glared accusatively at him, or so he fantasized. He ate faster, heaping pasta into his mouth with uncanny speed. Abruptly, he gargled down his soda, pinching his tongue like strong mouthwash. Using his hand, he tried to obscure the wrapped-up silhouette from sight. This failed. He contemplated finishing his dinner in his room, but then he remembered the new laptop on his desk, still in its box. Thus, he sat in solitude, feeling like he lived in squalor, finishing his meager repast as he tried to ignore his late, gawking tablemate. Then he noticed something strange. Being partially in the dark, Clifford could not see his ex-friend that well, but saw something well enough. At the top of the gray blanket near his former friend's head, Clifford squinted and dismissed his own opinion. That something was there that had not been before, and certainly could not be now. Something red. Cool, calm breezes caressed Clifford's face as he steadily drove 5 below the speed limit. He was still catching his breath from hauling his late friend's body downstairs and stuffing it into his trunk. He never imagined being so winded, and this trunk was smaller than he anticipated. Fetching the landlord's shovel was easy. He paced himself, but gasped badly. Clifford threw the shovel across the back seat. Soil got on his upholstery, but he paid no mind. Doing that to his dilapidated car was like sprinkling dirt into a landfill. Following a 12-mile drive, Clifford neared his chosen spot. He assumed it was still in the middle of nowhere. His family used to go picnicking and swimming near that place. The burial spot was next to a creek that led out from a nearby bayou, as tranquil and peaceful as the original source. Glistening water flowed even during scorching summers. Unaware of this area's parking situation, Clifford could only find parking at a tiny pit stop along the lightly traveled road that seemed to lead nowhere. He parked there, hoping no one would loot or steal his car. Loads of fun would abound when he would have to get home without a phone signal. Halfway to the burial site, Clifford caught his breath. He felt better, but later would feel much worse. He popped open the trunk. Looking down, he noticed that there was not yet an odor from the decay. Making this oddity an afterthought, the murderer proceeded to remove the murdered. Miles felt heavy. In reality, he was 178 pounds, not heavy at 5'10". Clifford himself was in horrendous shape. Hardly even went walking. His bike was in such derelict shape that cobwebs had amassed, so thick that they could have jammed the wheels. Lifting dumbbells or doing a single squat went the way of the Obama administration. Yet here he was, covering up his foolish crime. Holding the body, he walked. A fence made of barbed wire with a sign, rusted brown and crimson, read, "Danger, high voltage. Trespassers will be prosecuted." He ignored the sign. He then saw a glimmer from the old creek. From the look of it, it had to be a half-mile of lumbering through tumultuous weeds, limping through lifeless plants taller than him, and lush brush. Clifford tried to find an empty gap in the old fence, or even push Miles through the wire to make his way down to the steep incline. His plan was to lay the body on the wire, step over the body, and then drag it downhill. Getting his ex-friend down to his car without being seen had already been brutal enough. Clifford still held the body over his shoulders. Using Miles as a rotting human shield was his best idea. He centered Miles in front of him, Charging with all his might, he and Miles made it to the other side of the fence. Barbed wire buckled under their tremendous combined weight, scratching up the gray blanket as Clifford slid downhill on the carcass sled. They hit the bottom, dashing against a rock cloaked in yellow grass. Clifford crashed down, tumbling through the dust as it kicked up in a cloud. Miles rolled after striking the rock. Friction caused it to flail and flop. Clifford rose quickly, burning, racking his arms and legs. Nothing was bleeding. No gashes or scratches were visible. Pebbles had dug into his arms. Plucking them off left his arms riddled with pocket marks. That burning in his legs wore away swiftly. Miles was strewn about the grass. His arms, somehow freed, hung limply. Smeared blood lightly coated his skin from his fingertips halfway down his arm. Clifford tried not to look. Grabbing his ex-friend's wrists, he stuffed the crimson-caked arm back into the blankets. He wished not to view his own handiwork. So used to carrying Miles by now, Clifford absent-mindedly forgot about dragging the body. While carrying Miles, Clifford noticed the blankets were dragging on the ground, gradually falling into the dirt. Nature whistled lightly as they slid along the overgrown weeds. Clifford tossing the blankets up over the body so that they would not touch the ground anymore. But Miles's weight felt like it was crashing down on him, making regaining his balance hard. Miles's legs hung out. His pants were embossed with blood like dark tree sap. This unnerved Clifford, robbing him of his balance. Miles fell, and Clifford tumbled beside him. Thump. Miles fell flat, failing to flail. Clifford felt something on his knee, perhaps a scrape or cut. He inspected his jeans, finding nothing wet. Tired of mishaps, he grabbed both sheets by unbloodied ends and hauled his former friend to the creek. This creek and its birthing bayou channeled tons of water, glistening under the moonlight like the centerpiece of some enchanted painting. Clifford was close enough to see the desired burial spot. Moonlight provided sufficient light to discern the site. Beige dirt resting 6 inches above the raging rapids marked the spot. Corpse in tow, Clifford made an unsavory discovery. The burial spot was on the other side. Swirling, gushing water stood between him and ridding himself of his ex-friend forever. He pulled the body near the creek, letting it down before observing. Some areas were feasibly a foot deep. Dirt, leaves, bones, stones, and occasionally litter coated the murky bottom. Clifford was sure that dead bodies could float, making him laugh when he imagined using his deceased friend like a raft. Hilarious until Clifford sank, because living people do not auto-float. Clifford did not have a choice. Miles's corpse would have to be brought across this powerful creek. Devising a plan, Clifford let Miles go first. With no ado, he pushed him into the creek. Miles floated momentarily before slowly bobbing and started to sink. Clifford panicked. Having miscalculated the weight, he slowly descended into the water. His feet touched down on the bottom much later than expected. He was up to his throat in dingy water, easily over 5 feet deep. Floundering his arms, Clifford accidentally poked the body. He grabbed it, trying to swim as fast as he could with one arm available. Dirt puffs billowed in the water when Clifford could finally feel his right leg touch the bottom. There may have been less water in this area. Clifford trawled the body before making landfall. Now it felt even heavier than when he heaved it across the unkempt field. Creek water adds 10 pounds, Clifford joshed, but did not really chuckle. He set the body nearby on a makeshift moss and mud bed. Giant blood blotches stained the blankets. Miles hung out even more than before. But Clifford did not care. He only wanted to finish this, go home, take a shower, and get some damn sleep. Before doing the dirty deed, Clifford realized that he was without his landlord's shovel. Worse yet, he was without a flashlight as well. Other than the moon, there was nothing providing light. His phone's light was not strong enough for him to see. Clifford recalled having a flashlight somewhere in his trunk, but was unsure if it still functioned. He considered returning to the car, a trip of only a few minutes due to not having to lug a body. Many doubts deluged his mind, whether it was safe or even wise to leave Miles's dead body here, even wrapped in blankets. Nobody was around, so somebody stumbling upon the body was unlikely. Clifford went back for the shovel and the flashlight. He took out his phone, reasoning that its feeble light was better than nothing at all, discovering it to be absolutely waterlogged, useless. When opened, a jet of water flew out. Like his computer, no light would come no matter how long he held power. His flip phone was dead in the darkness, dead as Miles Drake himself. Clifford could see faintly, tripping over objects including the same rock that he and his ex-friend collided with on the way over. Despite his limited visibility, Clifford climbed over the smashed barbed wire without cutting himself, thanks mostly to the excellent job Miles did of crushing it when entering. Once he found the car and unlocked it, Clifford was overjoyed. He grabbed the shovel his landlord used to plant flowers, to go plant a dead body. Maybe lots of flowers will grow over it, he mused cruelly, leaving the door open and the lights on as he swung around the car. Opening the trunk, Clifford tried to use the car's light to guide him. Their reach was not far, but the lights were still of some small assistance. He fumbled around for a flashlight. Something in the center of the trunk was wet, likely Miles's blood. Cramming the body in too hard, or letting it lay there for too long, probably caused the blood to pool. Adjacent to the big stain, Clifford's swarming hands caught something. The flashlight. Pushing on, he flinched as his face was covered in a blinding light. After locking the car, Clifford had the flashlight and shovel. A beam of light was cast upon the old fence, showing where Miles had involuntarily broken the barbed wire. He stepped over the fence easily, pacing himself as he went down the steep incline. He moved across the field as the flashlight guided him. Clifford decided to walk along the creek's edge until he found a shallow area. Taking the shovel in both hands, he tested a spot by dunking it underwater until hearing a clunk. Given the length of the shovel that stuck out of the water, the spot was less than 3 feet deep. Very reasonable for crossing. Holding a shovel and flashlight above him, Clifford plunged into the shallow water. He traversed easily, the murky water coming up only to his belly button. Once he hit soft, waterless soil, he knew that he had hit land. His turning on the flashlight sent a bright beam down 10 feet. Clifford walked until he saw Miles in view. 6 feet away was the decided-upon burial spot. Clifford found a log and rolled it back and forth with his foot. Heavy and barely moving made it perfect. Clifford rested the flashlight on one of the log's branches. Light shone right where he wanted. He tossed the shovel close to the light before heading towards his ex-friend's body. Clifford carried Miles in his arms, his weight unbearable, much greater than when he was dry. Clifford dropped the corpse on the ground before sitting in the dirt to catch his breath. The more he moved over the course of the night, the less winded he got. With his breath finally caught, Clifford drove the shovel, stained with flower-blooming soil, into the body-burying soft mud. Squish implied that the ground was soft. Too soft, Clifford declared. He leaned down to the dirt, inches away. Clay. Not the stuff for toddlers, but real, super soft clay. Clifford almost laughed. This soil was probably soft enough to dig 6 feet by hand. Before he could start to regret going back for supplies, Clifford reminded himself that digging with a shovel was easier and cleaner than digging with his bare hands. He continued, exercising clay clumps from the soil and tossing them willy-nilly. Some clods hit trees, flop, and others hit water, crying splash before sinking. Clifford dug for what felt like eons to get a 6-foot grave. 5 might do, he told himself, but 6 kept wild animals from unearthing human remains. After some time, Clifford could barely see over the top of the grave. Since he was 6 feet tall, he knew that digging had been satisfactory for both his and his ex-friend's needs. He threw the shovel up before steadying himself and toppling over the grave. His arms ached. Unsurprising, since this was the only push-up he had gotten through in 5 years. For the final time, Clifford dragged the corpse. He got the head as close to the grave as possible, then backed around. Cupping the deceased's shoes, Clifford pushed. Miles toppled into the grave, his arms flailed about as he fell. Blood-soaked blankets and dirt considerably cushioned the impact. Clifford peered inside the grave, the body appearing to be twisted around in a badly disturbed position. Shining the flashlight down into the ground, he leered into the grave, the corpse wrapped in soaked sheets from the waters of his maiden voyage. Clifford was unremorseful for his crimes, but in the time-honored tradition of eulogies, he thought he would say something out of respect. He lied. What can I say about my old friend Miles? He died not as my friend. He also kissed Chrissy. Who knows how many times they screwed, still on the fence about killing her. I'd have to get her away from her parents' house, and taking her would be a nightmare. Clifford prattled on, reflecting as only a selfish sociopath could. But before I go, I just want to say... With his torso quickly jerking and a flick of his wrist, Clifford flipped Miles the bird while still holding the flashlight. Then hawked a loogie. His normal aim left something to be desired, but this time he had some serendipitous luck. The spit landed exactly on part of the blanket that covered his cheek. It could not have been more perfect. Setting the flashlight down, Clifford positioned it for adequate lighting during the burial. Deeming it sufficient, he scooped up the shovel. Piercing some unearthed dirt, he took a clump and lobbed it into the grave, hitting Miles in the chest. Soggy mud fell in droves, striking him with the lowly sounds of plopping mush. Better get going. This body isn't going to bury itself, Clifford commented to no one. At noontime, Clifford just woke up. Though the notion terrified him, he slept like the dead. Feeling unusually refreshed, he'd had the best sleep of his year. He began to worry because he could not remember if he had to work that day. Rain played upon his bedroom window, a sweet, soft tune that could have only been played by nature. Rain seemed unusual after all this dry weather. Sprinkles had glazed his car as he headed home from the burial. He discarded his landlord's shovel by tossing the evidence into a river. His mud-stained shoes were also evidence. So were his clothes, shoe tread, diatoms, and other things around creeks were pieces of evidence as well. Rain wept in sheets as Clifford changed his clothes back at the apartment. His windows were pounded hard by the rain, like it wanted to be let in. Swishes of blood littered his clothes, lightly yet visibly. They would have to go. His shoes as well, but they were also his only pair. He would have to beg his parents for a new pair for Christmas. They were not on great speaking terms, mostly over his moving out. Clifford thought they would have been proud of him for being so independent at his age. Apparently, parents could not appreciate nice things. Clifford would have to hose the hell out of his shoes in the garage and get them dry, all before work. Finding out if he was working today was imperative. If it was a noon to 8-er, he could lie about bad traffic and it might work. A 9 to 5 shift was a whole different beast entirely. He would have to lie about being sick again. Then he realized he had no phone. He had tried to see if his phone worked. The phone remained blank. Clifford considered charging it, jolting it awake, but he did not want to run the risk of water still being inside. Given the possibility that it, too, could be evidence, Clifford found a nearby box and chucked it inside. He would have thrown it into the garage dumpster, but he thought to keep the SIM card. These flip phones usually cost under $30, something even poor Clifford could afford. Unable to call work or access his online schedule, Clifford's last option was his new laptop. Now was the perfect time to boot up his computer and set it up. Flicks of rain hitting the roof intensified, distracting Clifford momentarily. His computer took priority, then his video game, the one over which Chrissy left him, and his former friend stopped talking to him. Clifford grabbed the box and began removing the laptop. Knock, knock, knock. Large raps at the door surprised Clifford. He wondered who could be knocking. Maybe the landlord asking about his shovel. Unlikely, since he had 5 or 6 of them. Questions mounted inside his mind as he approached before a 4th knock was rapped. He opened the door. Chrissy was standing there in orange short shorts and a low-cut orange top. Her hair was curled immaculately into rippling blonde ribbons. She was holding a bag, and, based on the logo, it was undoubtedly packed with cheeseburgers and fries. An apple pie, too, he guessed. Revealing outfit, perfectly done hair, and fast food hit the entire things he liked checklist. Favorites for winning his favor. But Clifford would have none of it. "Hiya, Cliffy. I was in the neighborhood and I thought I'd bring you some lunch. Your coworkers said that you were off today and you'd be in tomorrow, so I didn't want to miss you." Chrissy cheered, accentuating every sentence with preppy cheerleader enthusiasm while answering Clifford's burning question. He was appreciative of that. "Why are you here, Chrissy?" "I told you, silly, to bring you lunch." Chrissy reiterated as though her lengthy voicemail telling him that they were through ceased to exist. She entered the apartment like nothing had happened, but Clifford would not tolerate it. He held up his hand to stop her. Her breasts bumped up against his fingers, and she gave him a kittenish look. Clifford then wanted to facepalm instead. "Whoa, slow down, Cliffy. We can do that later. For as long as you want, any way that you want," Chrissy flirted, winking, teasing him with her brown eyes. Her lipstick was crimson, a mild deviation off of the maroon that he liked. Resisting her was hard. She moved so provocatively. Sex was overwhelmingly tempting. He was also hungry, having missed breakfast. Chrissy noticed. Forgiveness literally in the bag. Clifford killed his friend over her and dragged him across a field in the middle of the night. If he could do all that, then he could reject his ex's advances. No, Chrissy. You need to go, please," Clifford said, being as polite as he possibly could, given the circumstances. "Are you serious?" Chrissy pouted. "I am. But there is something that I want to do, because you're just so lovely," Clifford fibbed, smiled, and puckered up his lips. Chrissy puckered her lips, too. They looked like a beautifully kissable bundle of red candies. But Clifford resisted by keeping his eyes open. Soon he would be done with her. He leaned in as his hand tended to other business. "Thanks, don't come back," Clifford exclaimed, holding the greasy food bag. Never in Western civilization had a door been locked faster. Clifford sauntered over to his kitchen table, holding his fast food. Miles was not sitting there anymore. Clifford could have his lunch in peace. Rain thrashed against the windows as if possessed by eerie ire. One powerful thud on the door, and then Chrissy shouted an expletive as she stormed down the hall. Probably asshole, Clifford chuckled, hoping neighbors had heard. Classful. Chrissy stormed downstairs, out of the front lobby to her car, fuming. All the time and money she spent on her makeup and outfit and getting him lunch angered her just as much as being rejected. She ignored the throbbing rain that soaked her on the way outside. She got behind the wheel and floored it, weather and speed limit be damned. Meanwhile, Clifford continued to eat. Since he skipped last night's shower and plopped dead on his bed, his hair was greasy and matted. He wore an undershirt and boxers even though it was 60 degrees outside. Humming as though listening to music, Clifford bit into a cheeseburger and munched on some fries. His piece was cut short by a solemn knock. Happiness dissipated, he marched to the door. He was pissed because it had to be Chrissy, unable to take no for an answer. As a couple, it was always her way or the guilt trip highway, or the no-sex highway, or some equally displeasing highway for only Clifford, and never her. Ever. Not bothering to peer through the peephole, Clifford angrily opened the door. His eyes were full of fury until they were filled with fear. Standing at the door was not Chrissy. It was Miles. Clifford was struck silent. Miles did not speak, but smiled. His flesh was of a repulsive lime green. Black hair hung off his head in tattered waves, full of dead leaves, dropping down over his forehead. Tattered clothes hung off his frame, looking too big for him. Drenched, his clothes formed ripples that spread out like a system of big veins on a shriveled-up arm. Only his eyes were normal. They looked alive. Of course, they were not. He was dead. A second grin unveiled decrepit teeth. Seaweed green gunk lashed his teeth with hideousness. Miles stepped forward. Clifford ran into the kitchen. Miles could have easily stopped him, but decided to let him make a fool of himself. Clifford panicked, struggling to unsheath a large kitchen knife from its holder. Miles did nothing, nor planned to. He had a literal eternity. "Cliff, please. You're only making a fool out of yourself," Miles said, his alive-looking eyes still glaring piercingly. His mouth let loose a small gargle that swished whenever he spoke. "I don't know who you are, but Miles is dead. Besides, he was always a stoner, glassy-eyed, talked slowly. But you're too clean, too smart. You're not him. He's dead, and he needs to stay that way," Clifford declared, stabbing it in the chest. Miles's soggy clothes made a squish pop out of the knife dug into dead muscle. Clifford pulled out the knife, sending out a tiny squirt of blood and a big pish of grimy water. "What did you think would happen?" Miles asked, throwing his hands up. "I thought my friend would die in peace and stay dead." "Can't die in peace if I'm in a shallow grave, but you'll understand soon enough." Clifford came up with the knife once more, fueled by fear. It came down sloppily. Miles caught Clifford's wrist. Grinning, he considered breaking Clifford's arm, but other plans befit Clifford much more. "Please, Cliff, look at yourself. So fat, so out of shape, only caring about your video game. Working at that store because you were so much better than everyone else. Dropped out of high school. Took 4 years to get a GED. Even worse, you broke Chrissy's heart. Mine, too. She adored you. I loved you like a brother. Miles taunted him, gripping Clifford's wrist until he released his weapon. Catching it, Miles held the knife up. He twirled the knife, pointing it at his ex-friend as it glinted brilliantly in the light. And brothers share with brothers. Miles howled, transpiercing Clifford violently. Clifford yelped, unable to break free from Miles's grip. His other arm hung limply. The knife went in and out of Clifford, spitting blood onto the floor in little spritzes. Miles thrust too hard, the blade breaking off inside Clifford's gut. This would not do. Not at all. Tripping over himself, Clifford sprawled backwards and attempted to flee. Blood trickled under him like slime trailing off a slug. Miles smiled and walked slowly. This was his moment. Miles would not be cheated. Clifford begged, but it went unheeded. Miles slipped his slimy, vengeful hands around his ex-friend's throat. Clifford choked, beginning to lose consciousness. Miles delighted in hearing gurgling sounds that were not caused by his own wretched condition. Rain outside had ceased its relentless pounding, tapering off until its gentle touch drew away and faded from a blue mass of sky altogether. Never noticing the missing shovel, Clifford's landlord checked in. Good policy was not to drop in on tenants unannounced, but neighbors reported odd sounds coming from his apartment, and that was last week. His parents seldom called him, regretting that decision deeply when police discovered Clifford's body. Mr. Claremont was frustrated beyond comprehension, Mrs. Claremont tearful beyond reason. They blamed themselves for their son's estrangement. Chrissy broke down crying, trying to get over their breakup, but lamenting his death instead. Miles had been reported missing by his parents 4 days before Clifford was found. The Drakes were hopeful that their son would show up alive and well. Upon discovering the body, Clifford's landlord dialed 911, running down the hallway and into the fresh air. Investigators examined the crime scene, gathering forensic evidence while trying to establish facts of the case. Clifford was found on his kitchen floor with numerous stab wounds, all of which had been inflicted to his abdomen. Police had also found a brand new laptop in the deceased's room. Police wondered if it was revenge for theft, until they found a receipt in Clifford's wallet. Coroner Jones would later discover the broken blade inside Clifford. She would end up ruling the death a homicide, the causes of death being hemorrhage and asphyxiation. That was what the coroner found so odd. Clifford had muddy water in his lungs, as though drowned.